Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. My name is Yana DeGenna, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services for the Oxnard School District. We are here today to share some information regarding the OSD instructional framework and our plans as we look at starting the school year 2021 through distance learning, and then hopefully transitioning to a hybrid model. We hope to provide some information that will be useful to you today. I want to begin by going over some of the legal guidance. As you know, in March, when our school closures were taking place, we really did not have a lot of legal guidance regarding the information that had to happen during distance learning. We've gotten lots of questions of whether everything will look the same now when we go into distance learning this time around. And we wanted to take an opportunity to share with you the legal guidance that has already come to us that is really going to guide our work and for the next school year. So legal guidance is under the Senate Bill 98, and this provides for opportunities for schools to do in-person instruction when possible, distance learning, and a combination of both distance learning and in-person instruction. Part of the guidance makes sure to tell us that we are still held to 180 instructional days. In order for our schools to be in compliance with the law, our students must be in school for 180 days. Now those days can be both in a virtual format through distance learning or in-person instruction. In addition to that, something that has changed is the instructional minutes. So instructional minutes for the 2021 school year have been adjusted. So they are as follows: 180 instructional minutes for our TK5 students, 230 instructional minutes in grades 1 through 3, and 240 instructional minutes in grades 4 through 12, and in our case, 4th through 8th grade. Now, these instructional minutes can be done in different ways. Those instructional minutes don't necessarily mean they have to be in person or live instruction. They can be done in a variety of different ways. So they can be done in-person instruction. The instructional minutes shall be based on the time scheduled under the immediate physical supervision and control of a credentialed individual. So when we are in person, those minutes have to be while the students are in school with us. Then we can do it distance learning. So the instructional minutes will be based on time value of assignment as determined and certified. And we want to create schedules of what that will look like for our district. And then it could be combined, it could be a combination of in-person instruction as well as distance learning, something that we have come to refer to in these last few months as our hybrid schedule. So again, here's the information that we have that we have to follow as we are creating these schedules. We have 180 instructional days. That has to be documented daily. We have to document daily participation on each school day. A student who does not participate in distance learning on each of those days shall be counted as absent. So we must count it, unlike what we did in the last few months. We must now keep attendance and we must document that the students are participating, both when they're physically in school and on the days that they are not in school. Daily participation may include, there's a variety of different things. It could be evidence of participation in online activities, a completion of regular assignments, contact between teacher, student, and or parent. Now, these are the general requirements by the law, and we are in the process right now of working in collaboration with OEA to fine-tune and to get to the details of what that's going to look like. And we also know that the district shall ensure a weekly engagement record for each student documenting synchronous or asynchronous instruction, verifying daily participation and tracking of assignments. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet, and we're working out those details right now. In order to abide by the law, we do have to have that weekly participation, that weekly log accounted for. Again, we have received lots of questions about what happens when students don't participate. We know right now, we will make this very clear to our families, that students have to participate in daily instruction, whether it's online or whether it's in person. A child who doesn't participate will be counted absent, And as a district, we have to have a plan on how we're going to address that absence, just like we do when kids are in school. We have to address both random absences as well as chronic absenteeism, and we will be sharing more detail of what that will look like. But parents will be held accountable through the SAR process, just as they are when the kids are supposed to be in school. And schools shall regularly communicate with parents and guardians regarding students' academic progress. So we will be working in collaboration also with our attendance techs to support us as they do when we're in school, and making sure that we're following up. Your student wasn't in school today, why not? Your child has to be in school. We'll be working through the SAR process just as we do when the kids are in school with us. At the end, before we start school, by early August, we must submit a plan to the county office. The LCAP, our LCAP was not waived, it was postponed until December for this year. But in place of that LCAP for this year, we have to provide to the county office a learning continuity and attendance plan. And in this plan, we have to include what in-person instructional offerings, what they look like, what they consist of. We have to include plans for distance learning, how we're ensuring access to full curriculum that is equivalent to in-person instruction. We have to include what curriculum and instructional resources we will be using, which devices and what connectivity looks like, how we are measuring participation, and how we're providing, monitoring progress, particularly in the area of language arts, ELD, and math. So this is very different than it was over the last few months. There is a lot of accountability built into this. There's a lot of very specific detail that we must provide the county in terms of resources, in terms of access to California content standards. And this would include also the materials that we are using our district adopted materials, and that we are providing assessments that are allowing us to measure progress in a real way. So we are working on developing these very specific plans. As we go through the rest of this and in all of our plans as a district, we had a task force that came together to look at this, and we wanted to make sure that we maintained our focus as we did this, that the instruction and the plans that we create are truly student-centered, that we keep equity at the forefront of any decisions that we make. And we know that that equity doesn't always mean equal, but that it really is providing students what they need and when they need it, making sure that we're providing access to all of our students to their instructional programs. Particularly, this affects all of our students, but in particular, we want to pay very, very close attention to our students with greatest needs. That includes our students with special education needs, as well as our English learners, our students who are considered foster youth, and our students who are experiencing homelessness. And then as we do all of this, we also want to maintain and ensure that we are providing safe environments and that we are paying close attention to the safety of our students as well as our staff. Okay, so as we're looking for instruction and taking all of those pieces, we know why we're doing it. This is what our students need. This is what they deserve. We want to make sure that though we are experiencing this very difficult time in our history, that we know that our students still need to receive the education that is going to be the key for their future, and we have to ensure that. So we know that we need to do this by providing them access through the California content standards across the board. And and our task in doing this is how do we do this in this distance learning model and still make sure that we're providing evidence-based first instruction that will lead our students to achieve. So we know our instructional materials. I think I've covered most of them, although not all of them, but we know, again, I just want to reiterate that the instruction, we are expecting our instruction to be done through our district adopted materials. We're fortunate at this time that most of our materials, with one exception, I think at this point, have access through a digital platform. So we know that we can continue to provide this learning opportunities for our students. The only one that at this point that does not have access in a digital platform is our social studies for our K5 students. or our TK5 students, but we are working with a group, and many of you out there are probably part of our group of teachers who have come together and are creating district blended projects that align to history, social science, so that we can load these up on our platform and will be accessible to all teachers by grade levels to facilitate the instruction of history, social science in those grades where a platform is not, where digital curriculum is not readily available. We have also, as a district, purchased ST Math for all of our schools. We've also purchased Lexia for all of our schools. We have Maya and we have AR to ensure that we are providing these different programs as part of our independent learning work, as part of our homework, as part of something that our students are doing that will assist them in continuing to progress through their standards. The components of instruction, we want to make sure that we're addressing the correct pedagogy, and I think that that's something that we want to continue to talk about, that, you know, our students need to continue to learn, and we need to continue to develop our pedagogy in this model without relying solely on, you know, things that, as we got comfortable with this, we know that our students can't learn just by completing worksheets. So what does teaching and learning actually look like? What needs to be included in all of those opportunities the students have in order for us to make sure that our students are developing their listening and speaking skills? How do we develop instructional programs that allow for our students to do that? We know that it's standards-based. We have instructional materials. How are we going to make sure that all of this information the students receive? So these are pieces that we're working on still, and we know that we have a common platform that we will be using, and we'll speak to that in just a little bit. And we know that whatever models we develop or the models that we have, we'll have our district embedded assessment. We'll have our district assessments, and we know that our district assessments at this point are STAR 360, as well as our IABs, and some writing components. So those will be embedded in all of our instructional programs as we move forward. Distance learning, according to SB 98, distance learning for both hybrid and full distance learning shall include all of the following pieces. And these are things that were part of the law that were not part of were not in law when we first went to distance learning in March. But now we must make sure that this is happening. So all of our students have to have access to technology and devices. We know that through K-8, we've already gotten our students their iPads. TK students, our iPads have been ordered. So before, when school starts, we will have iPads for our TK students as well. We know that all of the curriculum has to be content aligned to grade level standards at a quality equivalent to in-person instruction. So as we did last year, we thought, okay, we need to do some review. We need to provide different activities for students, but no longer is that the case. Now it's really about continued grade level learning on the standards for the grade level that the students are in at that moment. We know we need to provide academic supports for our students who have special needs, and I spoke to those, not only our students in special education, but also our students who are foster youth, our students who are experiencing homelessness, our English learners, our students that are gifted and talented, all of our students with unique needs. We need to make sure that we are providing those supports. Our lessons must include designated and ELD instruction, designated and integrated ELD instruction, and we must provide daily live instruction for our students. So a recommended instructional design for distance learning, at this point, we have broken it down into 3 spaces is what we're thinking of how we're going to design and account for. Because we have to account, as I mentioned earlier, for all of the instructional minutes that students are receiving. So for students in 3rd grade, we need to make sure that we have accounted for how much time specifically are they spending on synchronous instruction, how much time are they spending in asynchronous, and how much time is independent, which is also asynchronous, but we wanted to break that and separate that because independent work is more like practice, whereas asynchronous instruction is a little bit more collaborative feedback where our students are interacting with each other and with you through a different platform. So we haven't yet gotten to the specificity of how many minutes go in each of those. We are meeting again tomorrow with the leadership of OEA in order to continue to work through and arrive at a model that meets the needs of our students first and foremost, and also meets the needs of our staff. Some of the important components that we will be developing, and as we continue to develop these, we will bring these to you. We need to have regular schedules for students and teachers in terms of how time is allocated and when content is being instructed. So for the most part, students need to have a daily schedule. We need to provide, just as if our students were coming, our parents were coming to back to school and say, this is my classroom schedule, this is when I do what I do. We have to have something like that for our family so that they know every day at my child at this time is going to go to language arts, and at this time they're going to do math, and at this time is when they should be doing some of the asynchronous work. So we're designing plans that will provide that specificity for our families. That will be something that's very, very helpful to families. And from the feedback that we received between March and June, that was something that many of our families desperately requested, really needed to have that opportunity to have those schedules so that we know how much time should kids be spending on all of these different components. And the reason why we have to have that as a district as well, not only because it's good for our students and our families, but because we have to be able to provide that to the county office and to the state to ensure that we are meeting our instructional minutes. We need to make sure that instruction is happening during the instructional day. So we're looking at different, at working through our school schedules so that we can provide, again, that structure for our families. We must maintain attendance. There were lots of questions about what is grading going to look like. Are we still doing the hold harmless that we did in between March and June? And grading will resume back to what grading was. So the challenge for us will be, how do we get that information? Are we dropping things off, or as much as possible, how are we submitting all of that and grading all of that electronically? Because we do have to actually account for that. And students who aren't submitting work, we need to respond to them as well, because they, and reach out to them as well, because they are going to be held accountable to making sure that they are completing their schoolwork as if they were in class. We had a task force that engaged in multiple very lengthy meetings discussing different options for us. And we looked at a couple of different options that would meet our district needs. And as a result of that task force, which included approximately 80 people, many teachers were part of the task force. We had all stakeholders represented. We had parents, we had members of OSA, members of OEA, members of CSEA participate with us in during this task force, so that we made sure that we were taking into account everybody's needs, and we were making sure that we were going to address those needs. And as a result of that task force, a few different decisions were made, and I'll share some of those in a little bit. But one of them was that we, as a district, will be using Canvas as our district platform. And there have been questions about whether we have an option if we can use something else. And at this time, no, the district will be using Canvas, and we will all be required to use Canvas as our the platform. Now, can you connect other things to Canvas, like Google Classroom and Seesaw and other things that you're using? Yes, you may do that, but our main learning management system, or our learning management system, will be Canvas. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, there's still some things that are under construction. We've been very, very busy. Many of you have supported us through these last few weeks and being partners with us and creating some of the things that we've had to do. Many of you are still working with us and helping us design some of these projects that we're working on putting together to have ready before the school year begins. And as we continue to do this, we'll share more information in terms of the schedules and those little details about exactly how many minutes in synchronous and how many minutes in asynchronous and how many minutes in independent work. We're hoping that over the next week or two, we can share that information with you well before it's time for you to come back. I know many of you are anxious to have that so that you can start planning. Unfortunately, we're working as fast as we can to get all of this information done, but it takes some dialogue, and it takes some communication and some research to be able to put all these things together and to make sure that we are complying with the law, and that we are providing the best instructional program for our students. Okay, so as I mentioned, we had a task force that worked with us on this, and again, I bring this to you because though we will be starting the school year, in distance, 100% distance learning. At this time, we are also preparing simultaneously for when our students are to come back. We know that the law is asking for us that that as much as possible and as soon as possible and as soon as it is safe that we bring our students back. We know that our students need to be in school. We know that many of you are anxious to get to school to be able to work with your students. And so while we are designing and creating all the details for the 100% distance learning, we are also creating a model that is our hybrid model, which was something that was presented during these task force meetings and that we agreed upon. So I want to take a moment to share that with you, although know that at this time we don't have a set date for when that will be implemented, but we want you to be aware of it so that you know what this is going to look like when we come back physically. Okay, so here's our TK5 hybrid model. And this is a model that, as we have been doing this work, we have also been collaborating with our neighboring districts. We know that the more that we can be in line with each other and support each other, the more that we will all be better off. And so this is a very similar model to what our neighboring districts are doing. Now the times, know that this is just a sample schedule, that all of these will be a little bit different based on grade level, and they'll be a little bit different depending on your schools. We're trying to keep our school schedules as close as possible to what they originally were. So this is just a sample time. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that. So the way that this would happen in the TK5 model is that our students would be, as a teacher, I would have my 24 students, and my 24 students would be divided into two cohorts. I would have cohort A and cohort B. My cohort A students would need to come to school on Monday and Tuesday, and they would receive the standards of instruction that are there, and the time that they're in school with us on those 2 days have to equal the instructional minutes that are required during this time. So our kids would come to school. What we're looking at is half days generally, and again, this is give or takes a little bit of time there depending on your school and what your school schedule looks like. But around 11:30, 12 o'clock is when our schools would dismiss. Our students would receive their lunches and they would go home. And then for our teachers in the afternoon, once the students are gone and they've had an opportunity for their lunch, the teachers would be now meeting through virtual. They would be providing virtual instruction or virtual connection to the students that are in the B group, the students that are at home. Now, you're not the expectation would not be that you provide the same number of instructional minutes for them while they're at home, and that as they got in the first part in person. So you're not necessarily reteaching what happened in the morning and the afternoon, but rather you would be connecting with your B students on other content, and you would be answering questions and supporting their instruction in an asynchronous way, and really just being there to answer questions, to provide feedback, to continue the learning, but they must connect with you on those days as well. So our cohort A students would come both those days. Cohort on Wednesdays is the day that we've identified as a distance learning day. Our students still need to connect in order for us to meet the 180 instructional minutes. Student learning still has to be happening on those days, and we still need to connect with them synchronously and asynchronously during those particular days, but we don't have to maintain those same schedules. On those days, on that Wednesday, it also provides our staff the opportunity to come in and to do some of the deep cleaning that has to happen, some more of the cleaning that has to happen. It also provides us an opportunity to engage in some of those meetings that occur during our regular school year. And then on Thursday and Friday, our cohort B would come to school, and cohort B would be physically with us, while cohort A will be at home doing some of their asynchronous work that needs to be accounted for those instructional minutes. And then in the afternoon on those days, teachers would connect with their cohort A students. Now this is again the model that would be in place when we come back with in person, when we're ready to return in person. However, these models already have to be, the students and the classes and the class schedules and master schedules already have to be established, even though we are going to start the school year with distance learning. So our hybrid model that was agreed upon is similar in terms of the A-B cohorts and in terms of the day that we will not have students there. The students in middle school will still be receiving their 6 periods, but they will be receiving 3 periods a day. So students would come for period 1, 2 on 3 on Monday, and then the A students would come for periods 4, 5 on 6 on Tuesday. In the afternoon, teachers would be connecting with their students who weren't in school that day. So if I'm teaching, periods 1, 2, and 3 today with my A group, in the afternoon, I might connect with my periods 1, 2, and 3 from my B group. Again, you don't have to repeat the instruction, and you're not going to be expected to do the same length of periods, but there has to be some connection, either synchronous or asynchronously, with our students in the afternoon. And then the same would happen with our B students, and our Wednesdays would be the day where we do teacher planning, collaboration, and all of those things built into our schedules. Okay. Same idea as we presented in terms of our instructional design for the distance learning. The difference that you'll see here is that this is a combination. So this has the in-person part as well. So that's the only addition. And that we have to distribute the students' instructional minutes within these 4 different spaces. So how many minutes will the kids be in person? On the days that they are in person, that would encompass all of the minutes. On the day that they're not in person, we have to account for the same instructional minutes in a synchronous and asynchronous way. And we have to know, again, just like when we were doing the 100% distance learning, we have to be able to account for those minutes, and we have to include those minutes in what our plan looks like when we report that out to the County Office of Education and ultimately to the state. Okay, again, we already touched on this a little bit, grading and reporting. Grading is going to be as if our students were with us all the time. We are grading based on our grade level standards. We are using the assessments that we would have used. As we start the school year, we'll talk a little bit more about what that will look like, because clearly STAR 360 is not something that you necessarily want your kids to do independently. So those are things, we're putting those into the spaces. So STAR 360 might be something that we do synchronously. So when you bring your students up on Zoom, you can administer the test while you're keeping an eye on our students and supporting them through that process. What will the same with the IAB. The IABs have been opened up by the state so that we can access them and students can access them from home. And so we will have a detailed description of what that assessment calendar will look like. We are in the finalizing that as we speak, and we'll have that for you before you come back to school, and where ideally that would be placed in your instructional day. We know that the instruction has to be grade level, and we have to be moving forward with those standards. We know that there's concern and challenges of, we have kindergarten kids who have missed 3 months of instruction or have gotten a distance and they're not necessarily where they need to be. And that's why we're going to have to use multiple measures to address that. But in addition, we're going to have to identify through these assessments what are the areas of support and we're going to really depend on our MTSS model to identify what does that first level of instruction look like, who are those students that need that additional support, and how do we provide them, and what resources and tools are we going to need in order to do that. All right. Okay, so now we go on to Canvas. There's been, oops, sorry, I just dropped my glasses on my. There's been lots of conversation on Canvas. I know I get lots of things that Canvas isn't going to be available. So our plan right now, I want to take a minute to say that as our task force selected Canvas, we were working with the Canvas people to help us create a timeline that will allow us to provide the training necessary that you need in order to be successful on this and have it ready as soon as possible. There are multiple pieces to this: master schedules, IT, working with Canvas. They are really, both our IT department as well as Canvas are expediting all of this. So our goal right now is to have Canvas ready for you to be trained on and ready to go by the time school starts. So we're working on what the professional development would look like. How many hours do we need for all teachers to participate in that, to get you comfortable, to walk you through how to start building your classrooms on Canvas. The reason why we can't give access yet is because we have to load, there's a lot of configuring that I really can't speak to very much that happens on the back end. But in addition to that, all of our master schedules and all of that has to be loaded, and that we're not quite there. We are moving extremely fast, but we're not quite there yet. We will have, like I said, training planned for you for as soon as we come back officially, as soon as we're back on calendar, so that we can create and start walking through what this process would look like. There are some reasons why Canvas was selected, and we knew we needed to have a district-wide platform that facilitated both for our staff but also for our families. And we wanted to make sure that we had something where we could not just train staff, but really create a training plan of how we're going to train our parents on how to support their students through this platform. So that's also scheduled, and we also hope to have that in August, but I'll speak to that more in a minute. The ease of use, the task force received a presentation on the different platforms, on the two different platforms that were brought forward. The ease of use was very important. The gradebook connection was very important, so that as we're using Canvas, whatever we're doing in Canvas, we can move over into gradebook, so that you don't have to both go into Q to do your grades and then work in Canvas, but that they can all speak to each other and connect to each other to facilitate that. Using our curriculum, one-point entry point for all of our curriculum, so working on how do we access Wonders or StudySync, or our math program, My Math, or whatever through Canvas. So that was one of the big factors that we wanted to have a one entry point for all of our curriculum. We will, like I said, be providing training for all of you, for all of our teachers, for all of our staff, as well as providing multiple training opportunities for our parents. Once we have those dates more solidified, we will get those out to you as well, but our intent is to do those in August. And this is also a great opportunity for us to have consistent communication with students, families, and with staff. They're able to communicate with families through this platform. We also know that this is a platform that the high school is using, and the benefit of the high school help using this is capitalizing on siblings that could assist our parents also in helping their younger children get access and work through Canvas as well. Okay, and I think I spoke to this already, kind of quickly, but time migration to Canvas, we are going to have the teacher training planned for August, and that we will, there are multiple levels of proficiency of Canvas, so we want to start off with what do you need to get started on Canvas and to create your classroom and be ready to go when school starts. So that's the part that we're going to be focusing on right before school starts, so that you have that ready to go. We are going to also have some ongoing training where we're going to be able to support and pay for some additional hours for you to go on and continue to develop your expertise in the different modules that are part of Canvas. We don't want to do it all up front because it might be a little much, but we want you to start in one place, get comfortable with it, and then have an opportunity to continue to grow and develop through that. Sorry. One moment. Every time we cough now, I have to say it's just my mouth is dry. I'm not sick. But the next part is our parent training. We will be working with our administrators to talk about what the training looks like, how the schools can have back to school nights or parent nights to provide that training for our parents. There are many videos and webinars that will also allow us to make sure our parents have the information that they need. Okay, so that is where we are. This PowerPoint and presentation will be posted on our webpage. And here is the, because I know right now, if you want to take a picture of that, but we at Instructure.com through Canvas, even though our classrooms aren't ready yet because our information isn't ready to go, there is this place where you can go and start playing around with Canvas, start getting comfortable with what it looks like, the learning about its capabilities and all of the different things that you can do. So we'll post this PowerPoint after this webinar so that you have access to this and you can start looking into Canvas with the free demonstration at your leisure. So Canvas, one of the important things we wanted to point out is that Canvas is Google compatible. So we recommend and suggest that anything that you build in your Google Classroom, you can then move into Canvas and won't be lost, and it won't be done, won't be wasted time or energy. You will still be able to do that as well. So we recommend that you do that as you're becoming familiar and until you have access to Canvas. You can start with Google Classroom. Okay. So that kind of brings us to all of the information that we wanted to share with you today. I know there's still a lot more questions that you have. I know you have, I'm sure, lots of questions about masks and social distancing and all those things. And we will provide more information, but today we really wanted to focus on our instructional program and what are the things that you should be thinking about and looking forward to in terms of instruction and in terms of instructional minutes. So we wanted to bring that to you. As I mentioned, we are still working with our with OEA and our district administration and coming up with some of those details that we want to provide to you. And as soon as we're able to do that, we will. As soon as we've got something a little more concrete, we will send those. We will get information to you as well. I want to take a moment to address, I went through all of the questions that you submitted, and I thank you all for taking the time to do that. And I've compiled, I've pulled most of the more frequently asked ones. I know that there were probably over 100 and so questions that were asked, so I'm not addressing all of them. I try to put them together and hopefully address a good number of them. But next week, you will be able to go on the webpage and we will have responded to all of those questions, and we'll keep that kind of going so that as questions arise, you can go to that format. You can also at any time email me directly, and I try really hard to try to get back if you have questions to try to respond to your questions in a timely manner. So if you have a pressing question that's making you lose sleep at night, please don't wait for that. Just email me or give me a call. I'm happy to, or any one of our Ed Services team, and we're happy to answer any questions that we have answers to. Because like you, we're walking through and working through a very different time. And as we think we have one thing figured out, there's something else that kind of comes into it that makes it a little bit more complex. And so every day we're learning something new, and every day we're putting as much together so that we can provide to you. So I'm going to go through some of the questions that were asked, and if I don't get to you, again, please feel free to email me or wait till Monday or Tuesday. We'll have the frequently asked questions posted on our webpage. So can we use our classrooms was a big one. Even though we're starting school with distance learning, you may use your classrooms. your classrooms are available for you to come in and teach. I know that for many feel more comfortable using their classroom and not teaching from home, and the need to separate between work and home is an important piece. When you come on campus, you will have to adhere to all of the guidelines and social distancing, which we will share with you before school starts, in terms of masks and hygiene and all of those different things. But your classrooms are available. Your classrooms are equipped with what you need, and provide that space that you're welcome to use at any time. If you are planning to do that, our only request is that you make sure that your administrator knows, so that we can make sure to schedule our custodial needs around those schedules, so that we can ensure that your classroom is cleaned on a daily basis. So another question is, are we phasing students in? And by this I mean, there was questions regarding, are we first bringing back students with higher needs, like our special education students, or our students in lower classes, our students that really, you know, it's very difficult to teach a TKK student to read on Zoom. So can we, are we bringing those kids back? We are working on developing some form of phase-in plan, so that we can really, again, remember that our focus is not about equality, our focus is about equity. And equity simply means, as we all know, that students, we must create a program that gives our students what they need when they need it, and not necessarily the same program for everybody. So that was one of our underlying values that guides our work, because that is a very important thing to keep in mind. We know that we have special education students, and we have parents of special education students who are really needing us right now more than ever, and are reaching out saying, when can we, my child needs to be with you. And so we're working on when it's safe. And you know, I have conversations with parents on a regular basis. When it's safe, as soon as it's safe, and as soon as we can, our intent is to bring back our students with greatest needs first, and then start phasing that in. Can textbooks be sent home? A couple of people asked that. If you feel the need to have those, because I understand that our textbooks are digital, but somebody made a good point that while we're Zooming, I'd like them to be able to refer to something, and if they're Zooming on their iPad, they can't see their textbooks. So yes, we can make arrangements to do that. We just need to work with our administration and create safe schedules where those things could be picked up. As with everything else, we are going to have to create some schedules where we have students come pick up materials that they need. Materials that we're not sure they have access to at home, like pencils and crayons and rulers and those kinds of things. So we're working through that, and we'll be working with your site administrators to create those schedules so that students can and parents can do that. The question is, how will students and parents be held accountable? This came up often. Parents, in terms of students participating, as I explained earlier, parents need to have their kids in school. This is not an optional setting anymore. Kids need to be in school, and we will be exercising and creating a very detailed plan of what that looks like in terms of holding parents accountable, again, through our regular process, which is our SART process, in terms of having kids. And so as far as students being accountable, they need to participate. And if they don't, we go through those processes, the same process as if they weren't showing up to school. And then of course, our grading is no longer just a hold harmless grading. This is the real deal. And so students can be held accountable through the work completion and all of those things as well. I think I mentioned already that all students will have iPads. Our TK5 iPads should be coming soon, they're on order. So we should have those soon, and we will be reassessing again, to make sure that the students, families that need internet access, in fact, have that from the very beginning. We will be providing materials, as I mentioned just a minute ago, for students, depending on the grade levels. And that is, you know, paper, pencil, the things that they may need at home that not all of our students have access to. And we will work with the schools in order for them to pick up and get those materials at the beginning of the school year. What equipment will be provided for teachers? The equipment that you have, which is your laptops, I think all of you have access to laptops or iPads. That's the additional material that we're providing. Any other materials that you need, such as printers, doc cams, all of those things are available to you at your site. And so if you need those things, then your classrooms are available to you to come teach from your classroom, or to come do what you need to do during the time that you need to do it, but those materials will be available for you at your school site. Will DLI continue to be implemented? Yes. Our DLI program will continue to be implemented. We are working on schedules, and we'll have schedules that will outline how that's going to happen and how we do the different languages, at what days and at what times. But we have to maintain the integrity of our program and our parent choice of a biliteracy program, and this does not give us the opportunity to not do that. We have to maintain that. So we are working on schedules, and we're working on lessons and units that can be used during this time. As you know, if you're in the DLI classroom, we have these integrated units of instruction that are already standards, that are standards aligned, and that are both in social studies and in science. And the team of teachers, again, thank you to those of you that are listening and are part of those teachers that are working with us in making those blended models, so that we are integrating the technology into those, and we will post those so that they will be available to you through Canvas or through Google Classroom, so that you can access those instructional projects and units. How will parents be directed to their child's teachers? So at the beginning of the school year, we'll work on the details of that. I'm sure that we will inform the parents both in multiple ways of who their child's teacher is, and I will work with our principals, but think there'll be an opportunity, just like on the first day of school where the kids come to school, there'll be an opportunity probably through something like Zoom, where we can have our parents log on and meet the teachers and so on. So we'll work through those details. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet, but working through that. How many minutes will be required? Will teachers be required to be online with students? In terms of online live instruction, that's embedded within the required minutes. And so we're working on detailing that out, as I mentioned before, and hope to have that for you in the next couple of weeks, specifying what those minutes would look like. We know that we have to account for, again, in TKK, 180 instructional minutes. So that's 3 hours of instruction in grades first through third, 230, and in grades fourth and up, 240 minutes. So that's a good number of minutes that really has to be divided into those 3 spaces. But at this point, the expectation isn't that you're on live Zoom with your students for 3 hours. That is not what we're expecting. We're really looking by grade level and by what's best practice, and we'll be getting that to you soon, we hope. Will teachers be completing a parent contact log? Not a parent contact log like you had before, like what we asked you to do when we went to distance learning. That's not going to be a requirement. We will be working with the rest of school staff because we want to make sure that our parents are contacted. So we will be depending on our ORCs to help us contact families, particularly families that, you know, the students aren't coming to class or they're not showing up. We will be working with all of our staff, our administrators, our ORCs, our counselors, to reach out to all of our families to connect with them. We will not be keeping a parent contact log. We do have to account for a weekly log of student instruction, but we're working the details still of what that's going to look like and what that's going to consist of. There was a couple of questions of why are we starting on August 19th? Can we push the date back to after Labor Day? As a district, and I really would probably say as a county and pretty much the state, I haven't heard many situations. We have agreed upon negotiated calendars, and we are sticking to a start date. We know that pushing it back a couple of weeks at this point doesn't necessarily give us COVID won't be gone. So we're just going to get our students back in school in some way, shape, or form as quickly as possible. And right now it's going to be through a distance learning platform, but at least they're back in school and back connected to it with us. And so we are sticking to our, at this point, we are recommending that we stick to our agreed upon start date. Will teachers be receiving hotspots if needed, phones, other materials? Teachers will not be receiving hotspots or phones or materials. Once again, you have the material, your iPads and your laptops, and those things are the materials you need. All of the other materials that you need will be available to you at your campus. Your campus will be open. You just need to make arrangements with the principal at what time. Our intent is to have administration back at our sites. Our schools are open for business. We are functioning. And so you will have everything that you need available to you at our schools. If I feel the need to disconnect from homeschool, what is the solution? And I'm guessing what this question means is like, if I'm working at home, I feel like I'm always working and there's no separation. I can't tell you what solutions are for those, but my recommendation would be come to school and do the teaching from school if that's emotionally better. And then there is that disconnect between home and school, because I know that that can be challenging for many people. Will we be planning a pickup day for students to get materials? Yes, our intent is to have a few of those days set up so students can get materials and any other resources that they may need. And that brings us to, did I end it all? No, I just stopped sharing. Okay, I'm still there. That brings us to the end of our webinar. I thank you for the time. I know that I probably did not get to all the information that you wanted, and I probably didn't answer all the questions, but we will be responding to those questions. Email us if you have more specific information. As we have that specific information, we will share it with you. Please know that our intent is not to share with you. It's just that there's a lot of things that are changing constantly, and we're working as fast as we can to get this information out to you so that it makes some sense. But if you have something that's really burning, please email us or call us, and we will be happy to respond with the information that we have. On that note, once again, thank you for taking the time to be with us. We will continue to stay in touch. We will continue to communicate with you as much as possible between now and the beginning of this new school year. We wish you a continued safe and healthy summer break. And again, we're here at your service if there's something that we can do. Thank you and have a great afternoon.